Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC. Kestra IS, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC. Kestra AS, an affiliate of Kestra IS. Capital Advisory Group, Inc. is not affiliated with Kestra IS or Kestra AS. Neither Kestra IS nor Kestra AS provide legal or tax advice and are not certified public accounting firms.
You work hard for your money. For the next hour, you're going to learn how to keep what's yours. Capital Advisory Group presents Keep What's Yours. Here are Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Hello and welcome to Keep What's Yours. I am Josh Gilbert, that's Jeff Zufall, and we're going to talk to you about keeping more of your money.
Yes. Happy Saturday.
Yeah, happy Saturday. Welcome to the show. Keeping it on your paycheck, keeping it in your bank account, keeping it from going to the federal government in the form of taxes that you don't necessarily have to pay. And how? What do you mean taxes I don't necessarily have to pay? Well, the tax code is written in such a way. Have you read it? I haven't. Jeff has.
Exactly.
And it was written in such a way that there are certain things that even the little guys like me and you can take advantage of and keep more of our money. Mm-hmm. And the federal government is more than happy to say, yeah, you know.
Oh, they'll gladly take your money at all times.
Right.
The question is, what are you legally obligated to pay? So.
And I always like to think that somewhere in the bowels of the IRS, somebody is looking at my tax return and go, oh my gosh, Josh Gilbert is using the tax code to his advantage. Everybody in the big bell, someone actually used the tax code to keep more of their money. And we're using it for the flex spending account for my son's school. We've got a couple other things that's going on, and these are all things that Jeff has found for us because we, full disclosure, Jeff's my tax guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also my financial planner, which is something that we're going to get into in just a second. But as always, we talk about what's going on in the news, and a big one this week, something about the rates, Jeff, and then the stock market went bonkers.
Yes.
What happened?
So the Federal Reserve decided not to raise interest rates. It was kind of expected that they would hold tight, but this is the third meeting in a row this year that they have not raised rates. And from what they're still data dependent. They still haven't said, hey, we're going to pause rates. But that's kind of what everybody guessed at and said, hey, if they haven't raised rates 3 separate meetings, they're done. They're not going to raise rates anymore. Because if you're an investor in the open markets, it's kind of hard to be a true investor and then fight the Federal Reserve when they're raising and decreasing interest rates. So the markets went berserk on Thursday, right after they announced that, or Wednesday, on Wednesday, and been okay so far the rest of the week. But that's what the bulk of the investors think as the Fed is done. They have inflation under control. That's questionable. And again, now the outlook is the Fed says that they're going to decrease interest rates May, June of 2024. And that's the question that there's a 65% Vegas odds that they do that.
Oh, really? Vegas is in this.
You can bet on anything.
Yeah.
But again, that's the question of the day is, do they decrease rates or do they just keep passing on increasing or decreasing? And that's the unknown. But
so they announced that they're holding firm.
Yes, but they didn't say we're pausing. But the indication is if they're going to decrease rates going into, I say early summer of next year, that's a game changer. That means they're done raising rates.
Is this one of those things, Jeff, in the industry and with all the stockbrokers and all that stuff, and they like pick apart every word?
Yes.
That the Fed has said. No, they didn't say they were raised. It was
exactly.
a pause. They didn't.
They're looking for that verbiage within the statement after.
Was there a comma there or no comma?
Exactly. And that's what they do. And then they can try and pick it apart and go, ooh, this is where they're going. Nobody really knows. And like they say, they are data dependent, which means if the data shows that they need to raise rates, they raise rates. If the data shows to do nothing, they do nothing. And what they're saying is they've done, and I say this jokingly, enough damage to the economy that they could hold tight going forward the last 3 times. Now the question is, do they meet again, going into 24? And if they start to adjust this policy, then yes, we could see some rate decreases, which is beautiful for if you're borrowing money, mortgages, credit cards, everything is tied to this. So, again, that's the question of the day. We don't really know where we're at until we get off into 2024. And the other topic has come up, is this political? You can't point at that. You would hope that the Federal Reserve says, hey, we need to do this because the economy needs this boost. And their main, how would you say it, draw is not so much the market, the stock market. It's more so the economy. That's what they're looking for. They're trying to precurse, 6 months, 6 years in advance to make sure that they keep the economy on track.
And it's been an education for me just doing this show, Jeff, because I never took microeconomics or macro. I didn't take any of the economics in college. So I wish I would have, because it's fascinating.
Oh, yeah, it is.
And it really pertains to everything
that goes on,
goes on in the country. I mean, you can't just bury your head in the sand and say, I hope the economy doesn't affect me.
Hope it does better. You know. Yeah, but it does. Everything that happens in the economy is going to affect markets. Again, stock markets front run the economy, hypothetically, and it's trying to predict where we're going. So if that's what's taking place this week, an indication, we should be okay. But again, 24 is an election year, so who knows what takes place. It gets kind of weird.
And it's one of these things where the inflation was so bad and the economy was running so hot that they raised the rates to slow the economy down.
It's
and that's
exactly
what you say. They've done the damage.
Yes.
And that's what they...
Tools in the toolbox, basically.
And I hate to say it, but they want people to lose their jobs.
Unfortunately, that's the side effect of it, is to slow the economy down in the proper manner. What they're really trying to do is knock down corporate profits. But the side effect of that is people lose their jobs in the process.
Rather than corporates lose any money, they'll just lay people off.
And then they reset.
Then shake each other's hands. What was that one? Was it Pepsi? Somebody. They congratulated themselves on a record-breaking year, even though they had sold less units of soda. Just because
they made more profit.
They raised their prices. That's it. That's all they did. They actually did worse as far as units sold, but because they raised their prices so much, they gave each other a big
pat on the back and said, "Whoa, thank you." I bet
I
want my bonus.
I bet there's a lot of swimming pools and a lot less Jelly of the Month clubs.
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of how the economy works, and it's sad to say, but what a good problem to have.
Exactly.
Economy's firing red hot.
Exactly.
Everybody's able to afford that flat screen TV. Well, that's a problem when it comes to inflation.
Yeah, because inflation will kick in, and then they counter that with the tools in the toolbox are increasing or decreasing interest rates. So they would increase interest rates to hypothetically slow the economy down. Again, not the markets, the economy. Most people think that they mess with the stock market. They don't. It's a side effect of it.
Yeah.
So it's the big picture economy, and it takes a while. So if they increase rates or decrease rates, it could take upwards of 6 months before that comes full circle, so you can even see the effects of what they did.
And then just before we go to commercial break, this is the news part of the show. We're going to talk about year-end planning because this is it. What are 2 weeks?
2 weeks, we're
left,
done.
2 weeks left, we're done. But there are still things that you can do. And then I want to ask Jeff, is it ever a good idea to pull money out of your 401k? And what's the best way, the most tax-efficient way to do it? I'm sure Jeff is saying, the best way to do it is to not do it. But
depends.
We'll get into that as well. But before we end the news segment, the Fed has decided to, and tell me the correct verbiage so we can all psychoanalyze it, has decided to pause?
No, not pause.
Okay.
That's
pause.
the verbiage they're looking for.
Yeah.
I say everybody looking for. They're just holding as is. They're holding the pattern of rates as is.
Rates not up, rates not down.
Exactly. Just they didn't do anything.
Well, that sounds like a pause to me.
Yes. Well, but they got to come out and say in the statements it is a pause. So that's what everyone is looking for the Fed to quit messing with interest rates so they can get back to investing.
Does the Fed give interviews? Do they say who the Fed is, or do they come out once a month, make an announcement, and then go back inside?
Oh, no, they have a meeting that lasts 3 days. Like last week it started Monday. They go Monday, Tuesday, closed door meeting. Then Wednesday they come out and say, hey, this is what we're going to do.
And how often do they do that?
Every other month.
Every other month.
Mm-hmm. So bi-monthly going forward. And sometimes you don't hear a word from them. Sometimes it's like, oh, look at this. But after they make their announcement, then the Fed chairman gets up and gives his, I'll call it dissertation on what took place. And then that's where people are picking that apart, trying to say, what's he really saying? When they say, oh, we're data dependent, people are like, oh, that means that they're going to do this or that.
Why doesn't someone just raise their hand and say, excuse me?
But they do have afterwards, you can watch a press conference. It gets really, really, really boring.
Yeah.
Because they're talking economics, and most people will fall asleep watching it. But they do have a question and answer, and it goes off. I think it goes to where you got to watch it on C-SPAN or something like that, because nobody's really going to watch it.
No. C-SPAN 2
yeah.
is what they put it on. All right, well, let's go to commercial break, and when we come back, year-end planning, and is it ever a good idea to touch your 401k? We'll talk about it. It's Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. He's my tax guy. He could be your tax guy, too. 636-394-5524, Capital Advisory Group, CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. Do you want to keep more of your money in your pocket, on your paycheck, in your bank account, rather than going off to the federal government? And tax time is coming up. You know?
Well, the filing of your tax return is coming up.
Right.
But
so we'll be on the lookout in the next couple of months to see those W-2s rolling in.
yes.
And, then it starts all over again. So there's a way to end the year on a good note, and there's a way to start the next year, 2024.
On an even better note.
On an even better. You know what? I'm always so optimistic. I'm like, great. Now I have 12 months
exactly
of tax savings.
That's right. Or you can procrastinate until November or December.
No. I want to get a full 12 months of tax keepings, and we'll tell you how to do that in the next segment. It's Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall.
Keep What's Yours continues with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Welcome back to the program, and it's one of these things, year-end is upon us.
It's here.
It's
yes.
here. There are definitely things that you need to do to get ready and make sure that we end 2023 with a bang, and by bang, I mean buck.
Yes.
With
in
a
your
couple
pocket.
bucks in your pocket. So what are the things that we can do now? And, we're 2 weeks out from Jan 1st. Is there still time left?
Yes, there's still time left. And again, this is something, this is like, hey, you're at the end of the year, worry about it. But typically you do this all throughout the year. So you're not in a big rush. This time of year, you pretty much got it down pat. The only thing that's kind of a year-end scenario, we talk about it all the time, is your Roth conversions. Now's the time. You know what you made this year from a dollar standpoint. So you could look at, should I do a conversion? Will it help me? Will it hurt me? And that's the question of the day. And again, most people will look at this as, convert to an IRA, a Roth IRA, but pay the tax from somewhere else, and it doesn't affect your account balance. The key to it is you have to do the mathematics, and that is you convert $30,000 to a Roth, and then what is the actual tax that you have to pay to do that, and you take it from the Roth going forward to see how long does it take you to make that back. And in some cases, it's worth it. In some cases, it's not.
Understanding how to do this, though, you have to understand how the Roth works, how the traditional IRA works, the pre-tax IRA. You sock money away pre-tax with the hope at some point that when you go to take it back out again, you're hit with a tax, but it's lower than the tax rate that you paid.
Yeah, you put it in. 24% tax bracket, you take it out at a 20, that's a 4% savings.
I'm in a 24, right. I'm in a 24% tax bracket currently. Hopefully that goes up.
Yes.
Jeff, hopefully I make a lot more money this year. I'm in a 24% tax bracket. I say, you know what? I think when I retire, I'll be in a 20% tax bracket. I'll pay the taxes then.
Exactly.
And I sock it away, and that's the game.
That's the theory on it. And in some cases, you are very successful. You actually make more money. Tax rates go up. There's a lot of variables in there. But again, if you use time value of money to your advantage, you pre-tax the dollars in. Then you come along at some point in time like now and say, hey, is it worth converting? Maybe the calculations are not what you thought they were. You're going to make more money in retirement, and your peak earnings, et cetera, et cetera. So that now you start to look at, hey, can you convert some of these from an IRA or pre-tax to an after-tax? But you got to pay tax on it to get it there.
And if you take money and do a Roth conversion, when you move it over, it counts as ordinary income to you.
Yes.
So if I, let's just say I make $150,000 and I don't know where the tax brackets are, but $200,000 is a different tax bracket.
Yes.
I can take out $49,000
exactly
to add to my
current income and stay in the lower tax bracket.
And pay the lower tax. Yep. And the game there is how much can I take out before I hit a new tax bracket, and that's when you lose the game.
Well, yeah,
because you saved money and socked it away at 24%, and then when you go to take it out, you're paying 32%.
Exactly. That's
you're
worthless.
losing the game.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's big picture today. And again, whoever wins 2024 election gets to, I won't say gets by choice, but they're forced to adjust tax law in 25.
Because the Trump tax cuts sunset in 2025. So again, people go, oh, taxes are going to go up. Taxes are always going to go up. I mean, so there's really no way to predict what's going to take place 8 years, 10 years, 15 years in the future. But the theory is if you put the money in pre-tax, you save tax dollars today. Time value of money, over a 10, 20, 30-year span, you should be ahead of the game. Mm-hmm. And then you look at it to say, hey, is it worth it? But don't do it until the end of the year, because now you know where you know what your money is. You know exactly what you could do. So, and when you get to this point, you can basically say, well, I know what I've done the past 11 months and 2 weeks. So nothing is probably going to change that much in the next month or so.
Exactly.
I can predict what I'm going to end up with, and I can say, I make $150 a year. I don't. I'm just saying for the example. Trust me, I don't.
He's got a Maserati hidden out back.
I make $150 a year, but when I actually do the numbers, I got a bonus over here. I did this. I picked up some money doing that.
Side gigs, whatever the thing may be.
I actually made $163.
Exactly.
So now throughout the year. Throughout the year, you can say, well, I make $150. But you can actually do the math now, this late in the year, and predict that for the next 2 weeks, you're going to make X, Y, and Z. And then you can say, how much can I convert without hitting that threshold?
Exactly. That's the kicker.
That's the game.
So that's the game.
That's why you do it this late
Usually
in the year.
You start November-ish. Just kind of putting your numbers together, and then it gives you plenty of time to do the calcs.
So are you in the office? Are people pounding on your doors?
What's
saying,
literally taking place right now is
I need to do my Roth.
It's year-end tax planning. The other big one is tax lot trading. So if you have a taxable brokerage account out there, and this is super simple, scroll through it and look at all your losers. And everybody's going to have some losers. There's no way around it. Sell your losers. Take the capital loss, okay? So the concept is sell the losers, create losses, okay? And then what takes place is the loss that you have sitting there will offset any capital gains that are created this year. So if you sell all your losers, say you sell $1,000 worth of losers, and mutual funds distribute what are called capital gain distributions. It's not that you're selling anything, they just, the fund keeps a kind of a track record going all year long. And if they make money through selling and buying assets, they push that out proportionately to all the shareholders. And then what takes place is you, as the shareholder, get a piece of that capital gain, even though it's a terrible year in the market or a great year in the market. So again, you have capital gain distributions that take place throughout, typically they start this week and run till right after Christmas, and they make these distributions. So if you sell your losers, the tax loss that you generate will offset any capital gains that are out there, and it's a dollar for dollar. So let's say that you have a couple of terrible losers, and you rack up $30,000 in losses, but you only have $10,000 in gains, and you have $20,000 of losses that will carry forward to the next year. And are on your this year's 2023 tax return, you get $3,000 as against ordinary income that you get to take. It's only $3,000, but still it's $3,000. And then you get to use $3,000 a year every year until you use up that loss carry forward.
And this is all great information, Jeff, but as I always say on this show, you're driving in your car and you're in your kitchen doing the dishes, you're listening to the Big 550, you hear Jeff say things and you say, that kind of pertains to me. Or, we had some losses that we could, offset some gains. But how people actually put that into their portfolio, how they actually make those moves happen, I think that's where some of us get lost.
Yes.
You can do it for us.
We can show you exactly what to do, how to do it, what amount to do. But we usually run into where they're like, well, I'm going to sit on that and wait for it to come back, break even. Do the math. If the share price is down $10 a share, what's it take it percentage-wise to get back to break even? You'll be amazed. Mm-hmm. It's simple math, but it's not, 10% to get back up there. It could be 40% to get back break even. So again, if you bought a stock or a mutual fund, why'd you buy it? What was your original theory going into it? And does that theory still apply? And if it doesn't, sell it, especially if it's a loser. Yep. And reset the deck. Now, here's the trick. You just can't buy a similar security within 31 days. Otherwise, the basis reverts back to where you started, and it was kind of a complete waste to do it.
So if you have a stock and it's down, and we did this over the summer. You have a stock and it's down, you can sell it. But if you're like, I really do believe that it's coming back. Well, 31, 32, 33 days later, you can buy it back.
31 to the T.
31
31st day, you buy it right back.
You can buy it right back. And then, maybe it just sat flat the whole time.
That's the risk that you run. Does the day that you sell it, the market skyrockets,
right.
That fear of missing out scenario, and it triples while you're sitting there waiting. Very rarely happens, but it's happened in the past. That's the side effect of it. So, but I mean, you could sell those losers, go buy something else, come back 31 days and buy it back. You just have to wait 31 days.
And then you have the same exact stock that you had 31 days ago, but now you get to take the loss.
You got to take the loss, and you get a lower tax basis on it as you go because it drops down to that lower number.
Do we have, for it to show up on our tax returns that we're going to sit down and do with you in a couple months, our 2023 tax return, do we have to do it before January 1st?
Yes. Okay. Well, no, December 30th. Trade has to be made before December 31st.
Okay.
Close of business or close of markets on 12/31. You have to make that. So you can make that trade on 12/31 and you get credit for it for 2023. If you wait until January 2nd, the markets open back up, it's a 24 event and you won't see it for 14 months.
Yeah, a year and a half. Okay, so that is something that we do. So we do the Roth conversions now because we know what we made. We can predict what we're going to be pulling in for the next 2 weeks or whatever. Some people, might have already gotten their last paycheck of the year.
Very well could. Yeah. And you know exactly where you're at for the year. So
you do your Roth conversions and just make sure, I call it tax bracket bingo.
Yes.
Make sure that you don't take out too much in the Roth because that counts as your ordinary income.
Mm-hmm.
Do your Roth conversions. What else can we do at the end of the year?
So a super simple one is take your paycheck stubs and look at where you're at year to date. Nobody touches their paycheck stubs. Half the time when I ask for them, they're like, oh, where do I get those from? Look at your paycheck stub. Take it and see what the federal and state withholdings are year to date. And if it's your last paycheck of the season or year, that's what the numbers are going to be. Then take that, look at it to last year, and see exactly where it is. But what you're looking for is what can you do? Again, the other side of the equation is, can you do more into your 401k? Now, again, the only way you get money in your 401k is through payroll.
A paycheck, yeah.
Got to have a paycheck. But then the flip of that is depending upon what you're contributing, can you still do a Roth contribution, which is after tax? It's a contribution, not a conversion. Can you do an IRA deduction, which means you put money in, it goes straight in, you get a dollar for dollar tax deduction for it. So those are the calculations that you put together to see exactly where you're at. which will help you as you go forward. And the other one that a lot of people, I don't want to say forget about, but don't worry about is, let's say that you make too much, you can't do a Roth conversion. It's called a backdoor Roth, which means you take, depending upon your age, anywhere between $6,500, $7,500, and you put it into a non-deductible IRA, park it there, and then literally the next day convert it to a Roth. It's that simple. It's called backdoor Roth. It's come up, in the agenda of the tax law changes multiple times, but they've never touched it yet. So that's one that you could do really simple. The other one is charitable contributions. Can you itemize? So the question is, do you have money left to get you to itemization? Is it worth giving money away to take a deduction for it? Most people, no, but a lot of people, yes. And I say a lot, there's about 7 or 10% of America that it will make sense to give money away. And that's given to the church. It's given to the Humane Society, whoever that may be. So those are just really quick. Make sure that if you have an HSA, which is a health savings account, you can actually finish off, make sure you max it out. It's just like an IRA. And you can do that all the way up until March 15th of the following year. So you can go March 15th of 2024 and then do your max contributions into it.
And is that something, the HSA and the FSAs, are those things that have to come out of your paycheck as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So HSA, well, not HSA though. FSA, it does. You have to declare probably way back 2 months, 3 months ago what you're going to do for 2024. And then the HSA, the theory is typically what we see is the employer puts $600, $1,000 into it, and they can do $8,300, and then nobody puts anything into it all year long. They kind of forget about it. And at the end of the year, if you need that tax deduction, max it out. And you could write a check directly in for your HSA contribution to max it out. And you can do that.
Interesting.
Yeah, you can do it all the way up to March 15th.
But with your 401k, your Roth IRA, or your regular IRA, that has to come from your paycheck.
Well, the 401k has to come from payroll.
Payroll. Your
Roth contribution or your, say, deductible IRA, non-deductible IRA, that's out of your pocket.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You can't double dip. You can't do a Roth and then turn around and do an IRA.
Okay.
And again, if you have access to a 401k, you can't do a 401k and a Roth and an IRA. There's limits. You just can't max out that limit. Okay. So it's either in a 401k or in a Roth as you go forward.
So I can take a look at my situation and write my Roth a check.
Yeah.
And just dump it in.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go to commercial break. And for the next couple of weeks here on the show, we'll remind everybody about these things. And Jeff will come in with a couple more interesting things to do. And then ultimately, you just run out of time.
Yeah.
The calendar flips over and you got to start it all over again.
A few items that you could do in 24 for 23, but a handful at best.
And it's one of those things, once we start doing shows in the new year, we say, hey, what happened last year? Anything take place that you didn't like? We got a guy here at the station that always talks to me, Josh, I got to talk to Jeff. For some reason, I always owe big numbers at tax time.
Yeah.
And I said, Jeff, what's going on? You said, it's probably his withholdings.
Yeah,
he's not having enough
Yeah,
withheld
that's
from
exactly
every
what
paycheck.
it is. Yeah.
So it's like, well, what happened last year? And what can we do this year to make it better?
Yeah.
Or if you discovered the FSA in September.
Exactly.
How do we make sure that we are taking advantage of it all year long?
All year long, exactly.
Rather than just the last 4 months. So that'll be the new shows of the new year. But things to do as the clock winds down, things to do before the end of the year-end planning. That's what we're talking about today. And we'll be talking about it for the next couple of weeks as well. Let's go to commercial break. And when we come back, I got my 401k question. Is there ever a proper time to touch it? And we'll see what Jeff has to say about that. That boat is just so sweet, Jeff. I just can't stop dreaming about it. Should I break into my 401k? We'll talk to Jeff on the other side of this. It is Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall, 636-394-5524. He's my tax guy. He can be your tax guy, too. He's my wealth advisor. He can be your wealth advisor, too. Capital Advisory Group, CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com.
Keep What's Yours continues with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
All right, Jeff, last segment of the show. I've got my question about 401ks, but just really quickly, we touched on a lot of stuff last segment, and this is year-end stuff, things that we can do before the end of the year. And I told you in the commercial break, I said, I get all of what you're saying.
Yes.
I get it all, that, doing Roth conversions, it hits your ordinary income. It makes it look like you made $195 when you only made $165.
Exactly.
But it is really overwhelming.
Yes.
To think of how to do all this stuff. Will you, number one, you'll sit us down and you can do a lot of this stuff for us, but is there like a pamphlet that you can sit down and write out for us?
Not really, because it depends upon your circumstances, what you have access to.
Everybody's different.
Everybody's different. Yeah. So there may be stuff that I talk with you about that your next door neighbor cannot do.
Right.
Or that maybe they have the advantage over you because there's stuff they can do that you can't.
Same age, we have the same, the floor plan of our houses are the exact same.
Identically, yeah.
We're the same age, same neighborhood. But his kids are going into college, and mine, he's still in diapers.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference there between our circumstances.
Huge. So that's why I say everybody's a little different. So.
Yeah. Well, can you at least sit down and get a pen and paper out and say, this is what you do first?
Yes.
This is what you do second.
Exactly. That's exactly what we do. That's what we'll be doing the last couple of weeks. You're doing year-end tax planning. You're taking their tax return, paycheck stubs, 401ks. Putting all this data together and then given here's 15 things or 10 things or 5 things that you could do, and it will save you money. Again, most people think, if I just do this one thing, I must save some tax, I'm good. It's not. It's typically 5 to 10 items that you do throughout the year that will actually save you that money as you go forward.
And those things that you do add up.
Yes.
It might be $50 here. It might
$100 there and thousands of dollars on another one, but they all add up over the year.
I mean, do you want to let the government keep $50 that could have been yours? No. I don't want them to keep $1.
Exactly.
So it's the old adage, how do you eat an elephant?
Exactly.
One
bite at a time.
One bite at a time. Just sit down and get through it and plod through it, and Jeff's there to help you. He gives you the ideas. He tells you how to do it. But at a certain degree, we have to sit down and make some of these moves.
At least make some of the moves or implement them or start the implementation to get them accomplished. So
it is overwhelming, but when you think about it, you could be missing out on $3-4 grand.
Exactly.
That would otherwise just be going to the federal government.
Exactly.
Lord knows they don't need it.
Yeah.
Well, they do need it.
Well, they do.
Lord knows what they're
not
actually
as bad as we do, though.
Yeah. What are they going to actually spend it on?
Yes, that's the question of the day.
If it went straight to the deficit, great.
Yeah, but it's not gonna.
No, it's the $1,200 hammer.
Yes.
And the $600 toilet seat. The bridge to nowhere.
Yes.
So one of my questions, and I texted you earlier in the week, is, and I'm not going to tell you why I thought about this. I will tell you actually off the air. 401k. You got it in there, and it's pre-tax, and it's like I'm going to play the game, and hopefully I'm going to take it out when I'm 66 years old, and I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket, and I've won the game of 401k. What if something comes up and this is a great opportunity, a great investment for me. This is a great, maybe the first house, or maybe you want to give your kids a gift on their wedding day of their first house, down payment or something. You got a lot of money sitting out in that 401k. But there's penalties. They ding you on this. There's taxes.
Oh, yeah.
Is it ever a good idea to dip into your 401k?
Typically, no.
Okay. All right.
Straight out of the box.
And why not?
Here's why. The problem is if, and I'll back up for a second and explain this. So the concept is you get either $50,000 or 50% of your account balance, as long as your trustee will allow you to do a loan provision that you could borrow on. So let's just say it's $50,000. Okay, you have to pay that back through payroll withholding. So the term of the note is 5 years. So you have to keep those payments up, and typically some of them will cut you off from contributions to your 401k because they want the money to be paid back on the loan.
First, right.
So you're really not investing.
So you're not adding to it.
Exactly.
You've taken away from it, and they're making you pay it back before you can add to it again.
Exactly. So let's say, worst case scenario, that 3 years into this loan, you get laid off. Guess what?
Oh, they want it all now.
Exactly.
Is that right?
You would have to go and find the difference to pay the difference in, so it's not taxable to you. And not taxable, if you're under 59.5, you now have a 10% penalty imposed. So the risks start getting on the higher side. Now, if you stepped in and took, $5,000, maybe 10 grand, and let's say that it was medical debt, where you got a collection. I mean, if you notice lately, I won't name the hospitals, but if you rack up a bill, they send you one bill, and then it seems like 2 weeks later it's in collections, and you got somebody chasing you looking for the balance. So again, the concept is medical debt. Yeah, maybe do it, get it out of the way. But again, do it in small increments because it's a 5-year note and you want to be able to pay it in full if you got laid off, or if you had an opportunity to move to a different job. You don't want, hey, my loan and my 401k is holding me back, I got to stay there.
Yeah.
You don't want that to go down.
So, well, tell me this. I mean, it's my money, and eventually I'm going to be taking it out. When I'm retired, what's the difference between me being 66 and me being 46?
10% penalty if you take it out. So
what's that rule?
That rule basically says if you are under 59.5 and you take money out of a qualified plan, there's two rules that come into play. First one is they're going to ding you 10% penalty, but that's tax return level is where that hits you. So when you take your money out, you really don't see it. And you're like, great, I'm done. But when you do your tax return, it shows up and dings you because you're under 59.5 and it's an extra 10%. But most qualified plans are forced to withhold 20% withholding federal if you take money out of a 401k, simple IRA, different items like that, and they'll do that out of the box. So again, you go, hey, part of my tax is paid, but the question is most people will be at a higher tax bracket than 20 with that money, and the 10% penalty on top of it adds even more confusion. If you're over 59.5, that's a different story. I won't say that 59.5 is the precursor time where you could reach in and start to take money out. But again, what you look for is most plans, and I say most, depends upon the trustees, will have what's called an in-service distribution option, which means you could reach in and roll money over to an IRA. When it hits the IRA and you take your money out of your IRA, you get to control how much of the tax withholding is taken care of at that point in time.
And is this rule, the 59.5 rule, in place for a reason? Is it there to protect us? I mean, the federal government ultimately is offering this to us because they want us to save for retirement.
Hypothetically, retirement, they say, hey, after you're 59.5, you can get access to this stuff. And it does kind of dampen the ability to jump in and grab access to cash if you're 48 because of the 10% penalty. But again, at the end of the day, you go, hey, 59.5 really isn't retirement land. Maybe 62-ish starting, maybe 64-ish, 65-ish. Really, if you say from Social Security standpoint, full retirement, 67, 70. So it just depends if your health is there, so on and so forth. But typically the only way I would say to reach in and do a loan is if it's medical debt. And I see a lot of people do it to buy a house.
Yeah. I was going to ask the house question.
Yeah. Boats, no. Cars, no. Those are big no-nos. Just because you run that risk if you get caught standing there without a job, and then you have to find money to pump back in to keep it from being taxable to you. So,
with the housing market being what it is, real estate being what it is it a good idea to park money in real estate? I mean, your 401k is going to give you X amount of returns over the years. What if you parked it into real estate?
Yes, there's actually a Supreme Court case that I don't know when they go to give their selection on this, that says that the hedge funds, like your Blackstones and your BlackRocks of the world, that maybe they can't buy residential homes anymore. So what's taken place, whether you realize this or not, Zillow tried this. They tried buying residential homes. It didn't quite go well, and they lost a ton of money on it, and they got out. But what's taken place around the world is if you've ever bought a house in the last 3 or 4 years, you go against cash buyers. And you go, well, who are these people, and why do they have $500,000 to buy a house? It's because it's a hedge fund you're going against, and you'll never win. So the Supreme Court is actually going to make I call it a decision, whether a hedge fund can buy residential real estate, because they'll buy cash. No questions, no inspections, no nothing. We'll close next week and write you a check.
And in my estimation, and it's worth nothing more than the paper it's printed on, houses should be for people who need to live somewhere.
In them.
Yeah,
not speculative
right.
investments. So get it this way, or look at it this way. Let's say that one of the big hedge funds goes to the city of Ellisville and they buy every house on the market.
Mm-hmm.
They actually can then control what takes place in that neighborhood. And I say control, they control prices is what they really control.
Oh, yeah.
So they could say, hey, we're not going to sell a house unless it's $350 or better. And they hold the cards on that.
And they have the resources.
And
they
have
sit
the
on it for 100 years.
They leave it vacant. They don't care.
Right.
You go by some of these houses, every once in a while I see a house in the neighborhood, weeds are, chest tall. That's because there's an issue, either stuck in a trust or somebody didn't have beneficiaries, or it's a hedge fund owns that house and they really don't care. You saw that a lot in, 08, 09, 10. You saw it a tiny bit in COVID, but most people stayed put in COVID and they could say, hey, I don't have to pay your rent. So,
well, let me argue this.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, and it's one of these things that I always do this with my sister. She's got more money than anyone I know, and she is really good. She's a finance major and all this stuff. I always give her my harebrained schemes, and she always, breaks them down in about 2 seconds.
No.
Yeah. Well, you forgot about X, Y, and Z. Okay.
Yeah.
I take money out of my 401k to buy a house for myself, thereby, maybe buying more house than I normally could have. I'm using the investment vehicle, but I can also reap the benefits of living there at the same time.
Yes.
Is that a thing?
It is, but here's the side effect of that.
My house is my retirement plan.
Yeah. So you could put real estate inside of qualified plans. It's a real thing. The problem is you have to go hire a trustee, mm-hmm. and look at it this way: as if it's it's an IRA, and you buy a $200,000 house that's a rental property. The concept on this is you can as much as buy a light bulb to put in the house because it's a contribution to an IRA. Your rents stay inside the IRA. They can't be distributed to you because it's a distribution.
No.
So, and the trustee fees are kind of hefty because these guys got to keep wraps on it as they go forward to make sure you don't goof it up.
But at 59.5?
You can start. It's taxable.
Can I start?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So there's people that people that know the game. They have real estate as an alternative investment inside their IRAs.
Wow.
And
so
it works
the portfolio buys it, but the portfolio
owns
gets
it. Exactly.
You
own the portfolio.
Rent.
Everything has to stay inside of it because if it's sent to you as an individual, it's a distribution.
And so interesting.
Yeah.
And
so it's doable if you got enough cash and you know the game in a sense.
Right.
But typically for you to borrow money from your 401k to go buy a house, and here's the bad effect is, again, 3 years down the road, you got a loan for your 401k to get in your house. You're in your house, and then you lose your job. You have the 401k issue, and then you go, ooh, I lost my job. How to make my house payment? And it's kind of like a double or triple ram.
Man. Yeah. All right.
So,
well, letting the air out of my tires
sorry.
again. Or, in this case, just pumping truth into the scenario.
I know it's easy, and a lot of people will be like, oh, that's easy. I'll just take the loan. I'll worry about it later. But later always shows up,
Yep.
and it's an issue.
And a lot of times later shows up at the most inopportune
times.
And
you're like, oh no, that happened.
Oh no, later's now?
Yeah, nothing of your creation, but you have no control over it. So, yes, if you had that asset sitting on the sidelines that you could pay back your loan to your 401k, half's taken care of. But, again, the reason you'd be borrowing it from the 401k is because you don't have the asset sitting over there. So,
yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was my question of the day. So just to recap, everybody, the rates are holding,
yes.
not paused.
Not
holding.
paused, not yet.
It really matters what you say. Year-end planning is happening now. You can definitely make some moves as far as Roth conversions.
Yes.
And
just
check your
simple withholding.
Look at your paycheck stubs.
Yep.
I know that you just either toss them if you're getting direct deposit, or you just rip that bottom part off.
That's right.
And take it straight to the bank.
Give me the check.
But read your paycheck stub.
Yes.
It could tell you a lot.
Yes.
Lot. And then robbing your 401k.
Yeah.
Probably not a great idea.
No, not unless it's like a worst case scenario.
Right.
And then that's
medical debt.
Even questionable. Medical debt's typically the only reason that you'd go, okay.
Yeah. At least now I know. And I can try to
figure out a different angle.
Harebrained scheme somewhere else. All right. Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group, 636-394-5524. He's my tax guy. He's my wealth advisor. He can be your tax guy and your wealth advisor as well. Jeff Zufall, CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you next week.